Welcome back, aviation enthusiasts and fellow aircraft builders. Today's video is going to be a little bit about my assembly table. I haven't made a lot of progress in the last 6 weeks, partly because of the holidays season and some other projects I've had going on here at home. So I really haven't even touched the airplane project in about 6 weeks, which is a real extended absence. But such is life. One of the reasons that's been taking me so long to get back to work on the plane is that I need to completely rebuild this assembly table. Not necessarily start from scratch, but I need to make some changes and do some different things to it. So if you haven't built your table to assemble your airplane on, I'm going to give you a few ideas that I tried that proved to not be very good ideas. And consequently now I need to rebuild the table. One of the problems that I have is because my bending brake, which weighs a couple of 100 pounds, is attached to my table, it really puts a lot of stress on the table itself. And it's over here behind the horizontal stabilizer. You can see how unstable this table really is. But when you're trying to level it and you're trying to keep it level, when the thing's twisting and moving all over the place, it tends not to hold level. Furthermore, I assembled it with 2x4s, and the 2x4s are just sagging. There's a considerable amount of weight that sits on the center of this table at times, and it's sagging in the middle. I was originally going to bolster the center and kind of raise it up with some adjustable foot pegs, but I think what I'm going to do is just completely start the whole table pretty much all over again using 2x6s instead of 2x4s, and I'm also going to put additional supports in the center of it. So another idea that I had was that I used exterior grade plywood sheathing for the top. I would highly recommend that you go with a finished surface plywood. So one side of the plywood should have finished grade and the other side can be the rough grade. But just going with like exterior grade sheathing, like roof planking or flooring type that does not have a finished surface to it, really with all the knot holes and things that you end up with, then it'll end up causing you problems later on. Plus there's splits in the wood, like down here, I've got splits and things like that in the wood that make for poor surfaces. Two of the ideas that I had that didn't work out very well were using the non-finished grade plywood, and then the other one is that I had a folding leaf design. The outer 2 feet of the table on either side actually fold down with a piano hinge right here. That's why there's the gap here that you can see. I did that originally so that if I didn't need the full 12-foot length of the table, that I could fold the wings down and have a little bit more working space in the garage. But I'm really cramped for space in here, especially with all the structures that are now assembled and things like that. So with the extra tools that I bought and everything, I'm now using under table space here for my rolled up aluminum and things like that. So after the first couple of months, I ended up having the table folded out to the full 12-foot length anyway, and I've never had a reason to fold it back up. It's just too much of a hassle and too ridiculous. Furthermore, because of these seams here, because of the folding leaves, it was almost impossible to get these seams to line up nice and flat without sanding it down and truing it up and everything else. So if you could just simply bolt the hinge down to the structures here, the leaf and the table end up with a slightly offset alignment that's almost impossible to correct. And so what you end up with is different twisting of the table depending on where you are, and then you need to have all kinds of adjusting legs and things like that to try to compensate for it. So what I'm going to do is completely rebuild the table. I'll salvage a lot of the wood from it, but I'm going to completely rebuild the table as a 4x12 single surface table with adjustable legs. I'm going to build the horizontal portion of it, the table portion out of 2x6s, and then finished grade plywood on the top. And I've got adjustable foot pegs on the bottom so I can reduce the twisting and I can level it properly. As it sits right now, it's almost impossible to level completely. That led to a slight twist in the horizontal stabilizer that I was unaware of until it was fully assembled, and even though I did the best that I could to keep it straight and level and everything, it just didn't work out that well. That was kind of the issue with that. So when I come back, I'm going to finish this video out after I rebuild the table and show you what the end result is and how I ended up building it. You can see that this bending brake now is cantilevered off the edge of the table, but because there's so much weight to that thing, it just makes the table very unstable. Another thing that has taken me so long to deal with is that I'm rapidly accumulating more and more stuff in the garage here, and trying to keep it all organized and trying to keep everything you know, neat and tidy and clean is becoming difficult. I'm really running out of space. I need a garden shed, something fierce, but that's expensive too. And so that's the issue there. I spent about 6 hours yesterday just cleaning and organizing, although you probably can't tell. It was a disaster in here. You couldn't even walk through here, but I hung up some cabinets, hung up some tools, built a shelf up there for the flap-around skeletons, moved the bike hangers over there so they're not in my way anymore. Made some space for some other things. You can see the firewall down there. I'm closing in on, you know, being able to maximize this space as much as possible, but I still have a little bit of tidying up to do. So when I talked before in a video about, you know, a 2-car garage being the absolute minimum, I wasn't kidding. My wife still parks in here, hence the tennis ball hanging from the string, but with all the other stuff that we have in here, it's just so cramped. There's just, you know, not a lot of room to work with. So when we come back on this video, I'll be back shortly after I rebuild it. I'm hoping to get that done today. I don't have the lumber yet, so I got to go do that, and I got to take this one all apart. So hopefully going to have a much better design. I'm going to cantilever the ends of the table out very similarly to the way that this is here. I might move the legs in a little bit further just so that the weight is more balanced, but I think that I'm going to leave it with this type of spacing. But I'm going to have either 3 or 4 2x6s down the length of the table, the full 12-foot span, and then do a lot more reinforcements and heavier like lag screw or bolt type construction to hold the legs in place and everything else, to make sure that I get a much stronger table. And then I'll spend quite a bit of time leveling it. Anyway, when I come back, hopefully I'll have a little bit better table to show you and maybe a little bit better organization here in the shop. Alright gang, so continuing with this rebuild of the bench. I've torn apart the old bench completely, and so far what I've scavenged are the original legs that I had and the cross braces, as well as the adjustable feet. I ordered these adjustable legs online. I can't remember where at the moment, but I'll put a link to those in the description below. And in keeping with the 4 feet wide table, I actually brought my legs in 1.5 inches on both sides, so I shortened the span in between them another 3 inches, rebolted them together with the cross brace, and what that allowed me to do was to put this 45-degree cantilever brace overlapping the table leg here and overlapping the 2x6 that goes this way. And I'm using lag bolts for just about everything now. These are 2.5-inch long, 1/4-inch lag bolts with 1/4-inch flat washers underneath them. So this is much sturdier now than the previous design. Furthermore, I have the legs on the inside of 3 feet from the end. So if you measure 3 feet out from the end of the board in to the line here, I've got the legs on the inside of that line from the end. Because this is a cantilever design similar to if you were to set this on sawhorses, I need a little bit more. That 45-degree brace is there to keep the legs from twisting down at the feet going that way or that way. It's really sturdy now, and with a 3-foot overhang, that gives me a 6-foot span, almost 6-foot span between the 2 pairs of legs. And because those are supported at either end, I don't need any kind of extra support in the middle there. But the cantilever brace there serves 2 purposes. It helps to support the end of the table that hangs over, that overhangs 3 feet, and then also provides the brace for the legs. When I come back, I'll show you what I'm doing to give myself even more support. The original design had just 2x4s around the perimeter, and I think I had a couple of cross members through the middle, and then also some additional 2x4s where the bending brake fixture was, and I'll show you how I did that before. But I'm actually adding 2 additional 2x6s in the center now, running lengthwise. So I'll have 4 total 2x6s supporting the table, and hopefully by using the straightest and least warped boards that I could find, and then assembling it on the day that I purchased them so they wouldn't warp any further, I'm hoping to get a very square and very sturdy table. So I think in the previous segment I mentioned using finished grade plywood. I misspoke on that. You just need to use sanded plywood. Have one side of it be sanded and the other side can be rough grade. And at 3/4 inch thickness, the sanded side gives you a very smooth tabletop that will minimize any kind of problems with jigs or anything getting caught where there's a knot hole. And the sanded plywood is a little bit cheaper. Actually, it's about half the price of finished grade plywood. So I think I paid $26 a sheet for these. And finished grade plywood, like if you were going to make furniture out of it, is actually twice the price. So $26 a sheet at current prices in the beginning of 2017. half the price of finished grade, and you just need the sanded side. So when I come back, I should have this all framed in, and I'll show you how I'm going to mount the bending brake, and we'll go from there. Thanks. Okay, so I wanted to show you how I cantilevered out my bending brake on the first table, and it's going to be the same method I use on this table. I've notched out the supports here to accept the cantilever mount here. And this was the method that I used to cantilever out the bending brake off the edge of the table so that it gave me a full 4 feet by 12 feet to work with. Now remember, my shop is very crowded and I don't have a lot of space to work with. Ideally, I would have built an entirely separate stand for the bending brake made out of metal and all that good stuff, but I just don't have room for it. So the best way I could think of to do this was to cantilever the, put a cantilever mount out just off the edge a bit, big enough to accept the bending brake. And then my through bolts go through this ledge that the brake sits on all the way down through here and then down through the cantilever boards here. And that puts the bolt heads down low enough that I can get at them with a wrench. So what I'll do is get this cantilever mount pounded down into these notches. I'm not going to secure them to the 2x6s until I put the decking on. I'm going to go straight down through the decking into the 2x6s. The reason I'm going to do that is that I figure someday I can remove the bending brake from the table and take the cantilever mount off completely, and I won't have to disassemble the table to do that. I can just pop out a couple of screws, slide the whole thing out, and call it good. So I'm also going to put some stringers underneath between the legs that sit vertically underneath the 2x6s here, and that's going to give the center 2x6s some more support and a little bit more sideways rigidity there. So I'm going to add some 2x4s there to bolster that, and then I'm going to do the same thing out here on the ends just to keep the 2x6s from twisting at all underneath the decking when I get this done. And that should finish the design. I will level it from there as best I can, put the decking on, check level and twist, again, make any adjustments, and that will be that. Okay, so one quick last look at this before I put the decking on it. I've gone ahead and tied in another 2x4 on the underside of those joists. Here I've lagged a cross support at the top of the legs up here, going all the way across underneath the joists. And I've also toe-nailed these in after I made sure that these things were 16 on center. Now I bought the straightest wood I could possibly find, and they are straight across the vertical edge, so there's no warp across the vertical edge, but horizontally I couldn't get much straighter than I got. So I've got a woodworking clamp here on this side and on that side, drawing those 2x6s in so that they're 16 on center. Or what that allowed me to do rather was to go ahead and toe-nail those into the cross members at the right location, and then when I put the decking on, I can snap a chalk line at 16 inches from either side, and that should be really close to getting me in the center of those boards up and down, so I don't have to guess where to put the screws. Just a little firming up on this end. I'm going to go ahead and level it as it sits with my adjustable foot brackets. I'll recheck level once the decking or the tabletop is on, and make any final adjustments. It's actually quite level as it sits, but I need to tweak it just a little bit to get it in better shape. So we'll be back after that. All right, gang, so here's the finished product. The hardest part about building this new bench was actually squaring the tabletop with the plywood so that I had a perfect rectangle, but that could be avoided if you don't tighten down all your lag bolts before you square everything up. But the problem is that's really a pain in the neck to then have to go back and then retighten everything from all the different angles and underneath the bench and everything. So it is about as level and flat as I can make it. There is some variation in wood products, so unless you build a torsion box, there's almost no way that you're going to get a perfectly flat surface. But my bubble level, the bubble is between the lines on every spot that I measure it. You know, it might be a few partial degrees off here and there, but the actual bubble itself is between the level lines. So I'm very happy with that. This is much better than my other table was. I just couldn't get the twist out of it. There was too much sag in it, and so this is by far a much stronger and much better table. So just a couple of highlights on this. Again, I used 3/4 inch sanded exterior grade plywood, and the sanded side is up. That's all that's left out of a box of 100 1/4 inch by 2.5 inch lag screws. So I probably used between 75 and 80 screws to do this whole thing. And you can see here I've got quite a lot of them in various places to make this thing extremely strong. Again, there are 4 2x6 joists running lengthwise. I've got them tied together on the end with a 2x4 that's 4 feet long, and I'm actually going to put another cap strip on the bottom of this end as well. I just got to move my aluminum roll crates out of the way, but that's the last thing. I've got 2x4 legs, 2x4 supports and cross members, and then I've got my cantilever platform for the bending brake. A slight modification I'm going to make is to put some steel plates on the bottom here with a hole bored through them, and then screwed to the bottom of this so that I don't have my clamping bolts mashing up into the 2x4 anymore. That's one of the things I struggled with in the past. And because of how hard I have to clamp down some of the 63 thousandths that I need to bend yet, I'm going to take the extra time to put those steel plates in there so that I don't have as much compression deformation on the 2x4s that are holding it up. But very happy with this. Again, I'm going to include a link to those adjustable foot pegs if you're interested in using them. Another option for you, I don't like this option as much because of how much this table weighs, but another option you can use is a T-nut with an appliance foot pad. This is an adjustable mechanism. You drill a hole and put the T-nut into the end of the table leg and then thread this up into it. That probably would work in this case, but they're not nearly as heavy duty as the foot pegs that I have. And once you get the brake up on top of there, and then the weight of the airplane, like the wings and you start adding weight, and there'll be times when you actually physically climb up on top of this yourself. And I weigh 220 pounds. I feel that it's in your best interest to use a little bit heavier duty table legs than those adjustable appliance legs with T-nuts. But it's up to you. You can go that route. I think a set of 4 of those is going to cost you right around $15 to $20. A set of 4 of these, I want to say, are $50 to $60, but in my opinion, well worth it because of the amount of weight that this thing is going to have to support. Now, one other quick thing about the tabletop itself. The very first assembly table that I built way back in 2011 when I lived at my old house and I started making form blocks, I went ahead and built a 4 foot by 12 foot assembly table, and the tabletop that I used was MDF. And there are occasionally places where people will tell you that MDF is a good surface to use. MDF is fine to use if you never get it wet, if you never spill any oil on it, if you never have any lubricants on it, and if you never hit it really hard. It's a very straight and square board and does make a nice tabletop, but it's a very short-lived board. So the caveat to MDF, if you're assembling a pre-drilled kit where you're not doing a lot of drilling, you're not doing a lot of jigging, your assembly times are going to be very rapid, MDF would probably be okay. However, in plans building, there's all kinds of stuff that you have to do on top of these tables that you don't do when you kit build, especially with the Zenith kits that are pre-drilled. So everything from using lubricants on your bending brake to modifying things, to using heat, to using chemicals. There's all kinds of things that you use on top of this table when you plans build or scratch build, and it's just going to get wet. It's going to get contaminated. The plywood, the sanded plywood makes a much better surface. The second table I made had a exterior grade sheathing plywood on it, which had a lot of knot hole depressions and things like that in there. So this is the new table with the upgraded sanded side. And it's entirely possible that I will have to redeck this one more time before I'm finished. It's entirely possible that this tabletop will get really chewed up in the process of building this airplane. But at least the structure itself with the 2x6s and everything lag screwed together and bolted together is much sturdier than it was before. So I'm very happy with it and very pleased with it. So let me know if you have any questions, if you need any assistance with your table construction, if you haven't already built one. That's it. So thanks for watching. That's all for this video. Be sure to like, comment, or subscribe, and let me know if you have any requests for future video content. As always, thanks for watching and good luck with your projects.